Hi, Game Master Brian, and welcome to Step 4. Today's a short one, but it's a doozy, so let's jump in. Now remember from yesterday, we used the T-graph that everyone's familiar with, and we used single word identifiers, again, something everyone should be familiar with. So let's review some of the things we talked about yesterday. Here we are, here's our T-graph. We have plot on the left, theme on the right, and we used some words along the way that we're going to actually focus on a little bit more today. Plot, we are describing the physical world, and theme, we are characterizing elements of plot. Remember, characterize and typify was in our definition of theme. We also talked about quantifying the physical world, quantity. And opposite of quantity is the notion of quality. Look at the relationship between the word characterize and quality. Look how similar they are. We also talked about the word observation, that when we're engaged in plot, when we're looking at a book and we're trying to determine elements of plot, we're looking for the things that the book observes. Persons, the who, what, where, when, and how, and why. Correspondingly, across from observation is imagination. If we're not basing our ideas on the physical world, then we're simply using our imagination, our brain, to come up with our ideas. Okay, now we're going to add to this. And from the definitions of the game, we're drawing on our first edition today, which is the word concrete. Now, the beautiful thing about concrete is we all know it. When we were little kids, we probably fell and skinned our knee, and we were taught that concrete is unforgiving. It is solid. It's the reason we build sidewalks out of it. All right, so we're defining concrete in the following way. Ideas based on observing the physical world. The game places concrete in opposition to abstract. Okay, so you know where we're going here, right? Now we're going to talk about the word abstract, and we're going to define this word in the following way. Ideas based on human imagination. The game places abstract in contrast to concrete. Abstract ideas are created by using examples found in the concrete world to build generalizations. For example, the characteristics of all those syllables, characteristics of a soccer ball can be used to build a general set of characteristics that apply to all balls, not just soccer balls, such as round, bounce, and play. Eric, in the back row, the word ball is not funny. Settle down. Sorry about that. So there's our word abstract. Now let's go back to the T-graph. We've got plot and theme, and now we've added concrete and abstract. And what I want us to do is start at the bottom of each column and move up and look how the words are all similar. So we're starting with plot, we're starting with the word concrete, and notice how concrete is about the physical world, which is something that we observe, we can quantify, we can measure the physical world, and we can describe the physical world. Now let's jump over to theme. Abstract. Abstract comes from our imagination. It is a quality and is the act of characterizing. Okay. Now, the next word we're going to look at is the word objective. And we're going to define objective this way. Ideas based on analysis of the physical world that are specifically free of personal opinion. The game places objective in opposition to subjective. A position is generally considered objectively true when there is sufficient physical evidence demonstrating that truth. Okay, so we know what's coming, right? The word subjective, because we're putting that in opposition to objective, and we're going to define subjective in this way. Ideas based on personal feelings, beliefs, and desires. The game places subjective in opposition to objective. A proposition is generally considered to be subjective anytime someone speaks without having first analyzed relevant physical evidence. Okay, you know where we're going here. Let's jump back into our T-graph and look at what we have. At the bottom under the plot column, we have the word objective. Objective has to do with concrete ideas that are observable, quantifiable, and that we use that are elements of description. Jump over to the theme side. Subjective ideas deal with the abstract imagination where we're qualifying and characterizing. Okay? Now the game also talks about the next word, which is the word finite. And we're going to define finite this way. The state of having a limit in terms of quantity, degree, or capacity. The game places finite in opposition to infinite. Geometry represents finite distances using a line segment. And there is the line segment. I personally drew that. Thank you very much. So we have a line, and it stops on the left-hand side and stops on the right-hand side at fixed points. Finite. Now, let's go over to the next, the associated word, infinite, and we're going to define infinite this way. The state of having no limit in terms of quantity, degree, or capacity. Geometry represents infinite distances using a line. The length of a line in geometry extends out in opposite directions for an infinite distance without bound or end. And there's my fancy drawing of a line with arrows at each side. Now here's the question I want to ask you. Can you measure something that's infinite? Think about it. Can you measure infinity? And that's where we're going with these ideas. That in fact you cannot measure infinity. Why? Because something has to stop in order for it to be measured. If it keeps on going, the second that you measure it, it's still beyond that measurement because it's not fixed. So finite things can be measured, infinite things cannot be measured. Okay, so let's go back and look at our t-graph. We've got finite under the bottom of under plot. Finite is about objective, concrete, observable, and quantifiable descriptions. How's that for a sentence? And infinite has to do with subjective, abstract, imaginary qualities and characteristics. Okay, now where we're going with all this are these last two words. And the first one is physical. Physical is going to be defined this way. Physics is the study of the physical world. If something can be measured, it is physical and can be discussed as physics. The game presents physics as the opposite of metaphysics. What's our next word we're going to talk about? You got it. We're going to have to talk about metaphysics, so here it comes. Metaphysics is the study of the non-physical world. Metaphysics is speculation because there is no physical evidence to support or refute metaphysical statements or conclusions. Any statement that cannot be measured is considered by the game to be metaphysical. Now, someone might come along and feel like their toe's been stubbed because Plato wrote a book called Metaphysics, and he nuances it a little bit in a little bit different way. But let's remember, this is a game, and we're creating definitions that are only going to be used here in this game. And they're being set up in a very specific way to build strength in mind, body, and spirit. So we're doing very, very specific, scripted, in some cases, ideas that may not necessarily work elsewhere, but we're going to be using these words in this way in the game for building strength. Okay, so let's go back to our t-graph and take a look at where we're at. Physics is about the finite, objective, concrete, observable, and quantifiable descriptions. Metaphysics is about infinite, subjective, abstract, imaginary qualities and characterizations. See how we've got it all set up there, right? Okay, now, here's your essay prompt. And you're going to need that last image, that full t-graph, in order to answer this question. So remember, you can either bookmark the video, but also the PowerPoint that I'm using as my teleprompter is available for you as a download on this step page. So my suggestion is get the t-graph in front of you before you start answering the question for the day, and I'll run through it one more time. How do the ideas of plot and theme relate to physics and metaphysics as defined by the game? So what you're going to do is you're going to take that t-graph, And on the left-hand side, you're going to start at the top with plot, and you're going to tell me the story of how you get from plot to physics. Break, give me a new paragraph, and tell me a different story about how you get from theme to metaphysics. Knock it out. Don't forget yesterday's essay. Don't let those essays pile up. The whole point of this exercise is that you do things as they come, because that will create a more solid learning experience. And we'll see you tomorrow at step 5.